Let's begin with your latest release, Choosing Mental Illness as a Virtue. In the press release about your second album with PHIL ANSELMO and the Illegals, it is stated that there are 3 guitars in the recording. Are you maybe planning on performing some guitars live? Could you please elaborate on the subjects? How did the process of writing and recording the guitars unfold?
First and foremost, everybody, I would think, if you're going to bring a riff to the table in a band like the Illegals, you know that the riff that you initially present is going to get stretched and chopped and mutilated and pulled in all kinds of different directions. So egos are low, because you know if you present a riff, it's going to get fucking taken many different directions. So I'm lucky to be surrounded by Mike DeLeon and Steve Taylor, who are really, really great players, number one, great contributors, and I'd have to say they get the assignment that's in front of them, you know. So that's half the battle right there. So other than that, they're great players to be around. And really, listening to the record, of course, it can be chaotic because of the 3 guitar players. But really, hypothetically, we could say Mike DeLeon would hold down the main riff to a song. I would play a similar riff, but maybe backwards or with my own note choice. I love the diminished chords. And Steve Taylor now, he's excellent at accenting the two of us, but he plays in a completely different time signature over what we do a lot of the times. So with that triplet of guitar going on, what's interesting is when we do play live, we do play with the 2 guitar players. And, man, the truth of the matter is it sounds just like the fucking record with the 2 guitar players, because of really the tracks that Mike DeLeon is covering up. He's doing little things that I would do on the record at key times and certain points during certain songs that I might do that might stick out or something like that. So he's good at that. And also, I can't play and sing at the same time. I suck. I have never been able to do it, and it's just not, I'm terrible at it. So, you know, live, I'm just going with the 2 guitar players.
Did you have a specific process integrating what you have recorded or composed and the guitars? You know, is there probably a sequence? You go first with the guitars and then you add the drums, or the drummer comes with some ideas and then you discuss it and then you come up with riffs for the rhythms or something like that?
Well, it has happened in the past where there's been drum patterns that have inspired riffs, but I think that with this record it was really riff first, drums later, but not too much later, you know. So it's for the style of this record compared to, say, the first EP or Split with War Beast or the Walk Through Exits Only record, I think the approach to the record suits our drummer, Blue Gonzalez. It suits his style better because he gets to do the out-and-out blast beat, which he's very good at. I think that for this particular record, I found that using the blast beat, which it's very common by now, but for me, I thought it fit. I thought it was useful with this fucking band, because that's what this band is for. It's for the expression of a more extreme form of heavy metal, and really it's me flexing the freedom of being a free agent and being able to play any kind of music I want. And really, I say this with a precursor to the next record that's going to be released, and after we release that, that's a whole different band. You and I could be possibly having a very different conversation right now. So this year is going to be very, very interesting as far as where to put me in which musical box do you choose, So it's going to be a very confusing year for people who are trying to put me in a box.
Yeah, well, really from just the rhythms and the styles that are combined in the record, there are many influences, and some of the changes and also the time signatures really integrate a lot of styles, which actually contributes to the concept. Well, in my opinion, the drummer abilities are showcased throughout. How would you describe Joey Gonzalez's evolution since the conception of the band until the present day and the way you're working?
That's a very interesting question, because whenever I get asked about Joey, I think that he's still a work in progress. He's only 26 years old. He was 19 years old when he started jamming with me. And he was the drummer in Warbeast. And really, I asked permission, can I ask Joey to play some drums on some stuff I was working on? This is many years ago, of course.
And they said yes.
Yeah, of course, yeah. I mean, they're part of the family, so it's like, okay, so that's the school we come from, the incestuous musical school between Texas and New Orleans. So, Joey came to me with a great knowledge of 4/4 death metal and thrash metal, which is great. I grew up during the thrash era, and I love a lot of bands from that era. And yes, of course, there's huge influence from, I guess, all the different styles that I grew up with in that era. And, of course, there was the crossover between hardcore and thrash at the time as well. So with Joey, I had to break him out of his basic 4/4 format and make him fuck with different time signatures and timing in general. And now I think he is an excellent drummer that I think, but 10 years from now, if he keeps up the dedication, he's just going to be 36 years old. So, when my career is winding down, his will be truly blooming and taking off into flight. So I see big things for Joey, more than me, he'll if he keeps his head on straight, and if he keeps music first and his focal point in life, I think that he'll be playing in the biggest bands in the world, whoever that might be 10 years from now. So we'll see. He's got that kind of potential, I think.
Yeah, he's amazing. He still has, let's say, a long path to go.
Of course, yes. And then with that path, I always tell them, any young musicians that work with me, to embrace all the music that you love, even the strange stuff that doesn't fit into the heavy metal, whatever. Embrace it and bring it in somehow to your repertoire, and let it be let it become part of you. an individual express all these different influences, it's going to come off as genuine, and it's going to come off as real, because it is real as long as you let it shine, man. I mean, in music, we know in music a lot of times where the chicken and the egg comes from, but sometimes it does get a little muddled, like I would say the line between hard rock and punk rock. Like, where did that start? What were the bands? Because you got bands like Pink Fairies, who nobody's ever heard of, really. And then, of course, you got bands like the Ramones that everybody's heard of. So it's like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Same thing with Blue, you know. There's a history of music out there. All young musicians should explore it, and it helps you become more well-rounded.
Let's speak about the first track of the album now. Little Fucking Heroes is quite intense and presents us with a brutal discharge that opens the record. Is there any particular symbol or theme in the song that you would like to describe for us now? You make mention to George Orwell at the beginning of the lyrics. I don't know, anything from the content that you would like to develop? Any symbol or theme from that particular song?
Well, truthfully, you are really pointing out all of my points. It's for me, I have a general idea when I write lyrics, and then I basically create a framework by making a title for the song. For me, everything from the title of a song to a line of a song to a single word a lot of times has double meanings and triple meanings, and I like for the person listening, the individual listening, to come away with their own evaluation of the song, really, because it's kind of boring for me as a music fan, and really, I always say this, I am a glorified fucking music fan, music nerd, that as a fan, I don't like when I'm told by an artist, this song is exactly about this. This song is about this specifically. I don't like it. I'm not a fan of it. And yes, I do give a nod to George Orwell because thematically it fits within the framework of what I'm talking about in the song. So, true crime, another whole different avenue of interest, but I mean, it goes hand in hand with horror movies, I guess, as far as a passion. I guess it goes hand in hand with this record that I just put out, to the examination of the imperfect being, the human being, the most dangerous being of all, because we have this thing called reason. We know the difference between right and wrong. We don't act on pure instinct. There can be a conniving, terrible ending for anyone aware that there are imperfect motherfuckers out there with bad ideas in their head, man. You know, it's true, you know, it's just crazy, man. And think about it. I mean, there's full television stations dedicated to crime and true crime fucking cases, you know, so that just goes to show, you know, I hate to say it, it sounds grotesque, but it's part of our entertainment, and that's disturbing in itself. My expression is, it is what it is. The generalities and the even the striking, dead, concrete points are all there. But I like it when people interpret my songs, my lyrics, and they come up with something that is completely far removed even from anything I could have ever imagined. It's amazing, actually. And so for me, that just helps the lore of the song move on and take a new life. So I let people just let them believe what they want. Fuck, it's great.
Free to interpretation.
Oh, of course. Yeah, it's like telling someone to look at an abstract painting and say, "Tell me exactly what it is." You know, it's like, well, there's a lot of shit here, so I don't know where to begin.
It's part of the magic of music, right? How we receive it, the listener, and how it is interpreted individually.
Well, of course, and it's also, I think we can agree, it's the age that we're turned on to music. It's the timing. It's the year. It's the way we're turned on to music. It's the mood that we're in when we're turned on to certain music. That becomes, part of us. And I say that still, music is like food. You love it, you hate it, or you're indifferent to it. And that's just how it's going to be. You can't. It's very rare that you change someone's mind. But when it happens, it's very unique and it's powerful. It's like sometimes if someone says, "Look, listen to this music," and you end up listening to it, and you hate it at first, but it grows on you over time. That's very rare. That's a very rare occurrence. But those bands end up being some of your favorite bands sometimes. So you never know. Such is the individual experience.
Yeah. And now that you mention again Individual, the track that's called Individual. In that track, there are a lot of interesting vocal registers that not only are presented there, but throughout. From death metal growls to black metal shrieks. Did you have any special point of reference or point of departure before recording and, deciding what vocal register probably suits best a particular passage?
Another great and interesting question, and I will say this, and this is very, very strategic and purposeful. Each Illegals record, for me, it's like I'm going to do something different vocally each time. So for me, this record I felt deserved a pretty honest and pure death metal expression, but I also do have a nod to black metal because I think that's kind of how the vocal themselves have morphed, and I find that very interesting when looking at it as an art form, which it is. We all know, Luciano Pavarotti was a great singer, but I don't know if he could do Suffocation's first record, you know what I'm saying? So it's a different talent. It's a different style, and it's a different talent. Coming from both schools of singing, like real singing, versus this type of vocal, it's they present their own different challenges with the throat and warming up and being in a particular voice. But it's also something that I find very interesting because it's something that I remember as a young boy when I would come home from school and I would practice Judas Priest Unleashed in the East album from front to back. I would sing that. So there was a mental component to all of this that it was like envisioning the way to sing this type of stuff, and it's like envisioning and feeling within myself where in my throat to use these things and utilize these different expressions of music. So the whole process to me is pure. It's fun to do, and it's also very poignant as well because, like I said, each record will be a little different. This one, for me, like I say, I want it to be more pure. The next one will be really different. Or maybe not really different, but a variation. Because for me, the illegals are strictly for the more extreme, metallic, and even perhaps touching on other components later on in the game. I know that for us, we feel like this is old, and it is. But I know that this record is new to everyone else's ears. So for us, it's like we're moving on and getting more wacky, I guess. But for that record, it's for choosing mental illness. It's a great benchmark for where our minds were at the time, and that was a huge nod would go to Australia and their death metal scene, spearheaded by Portal. Portal is an incredible death metal band, and I really got into them over the last 5 years, and it feels like I'm just coming out of a think tank of Portal. And it's pretty obvious on the record, I would think, to a degree. And also old Morbid Angel, man, like the first two Morbid Angel records. I'm a very big influence on this record. And also, I gotta say this because I think it's important. Blur core, Blur, this anal cunt style noise core. You know, once Blur core became a thing, and the Japanese took it and made it its own genre, it became mathematics. So applying all of these extremities is it's fun, man. It made for a lot of great ammunition because I've grown up with all this stuff and I've watched all these different genres morph over the years. So it's great.
Yeah, it definitely shows you're exploring new territory, and, you know, as a listener, I can appreciate it. I am definitely sure that everybody is going to be greatly and positively surprised. You know, the combination of the melodies, the harmonies of the guitar, the changes, you know, from guttural to, let's say, high-pitched voices. It's like when you're listening to the record, there is surprise, you know, oh, I wasn't expecting that, or there is a change of tone. Both the instruments, the percussion, and the vocals makes it a rich record.
Well, man, I appreciate that very fucking much, and I know the other guys would appreciate that assessment as well. And really, it's straight up and honestly, just purely for the love of doing it. That's why we do it, because look, I wrote most of the stuff, so I knew going in we weren't writing some big hit record, man. You know, we were going out to write an innovation of I guess what people perceive, you know, that when they look at my career and they look at the bands that I've been in, if they really do some digging, you know, they're going to find some underground bands in there that might surprise them or might not. So, you know, it's like, I think you just made a point in what you said about this band that I think could be said about this whole circle of musicians around me right now. I think, once again, that it points back to the next record that I put out with this band called N Minor, and then even the next Illegals record, which is probably going to be an EP or a split because we have two other songs left over, and they're very different, and the vocals are very different. So, goodness, man, I'm fucking with a lot of different styles. So if it's innovation and different tonality and stuff that is giving you hope or making your ears perk up, then I think that I've got some good stuff for you in the following 12 months or so. I'll be putting out some trippy stuff because I did a death metal project that I never put out like in 2014. That's really fucking over the fucking top crazy with different sounds and elements and layers, and so I might put that out like at the end of the year or something like that. So there's a lot of stuff going on over here.
We have also read something about making a version of Drowning Man.
No, man. I made a point of reference. Someone asked what N minor sounded like, and I said, well, if you took a song like A Drowning Man, or a song like All Dead by Queen, or a song like She's Leaving Home by the Beatles, that melancholy feel to all of those songs that stick out and stay with you, that to me is what more and minor is like. Very, very, it's like an avalanche of minor key stuff. And really, it's like a record. I tell everybody, if you throw a big party and you got a lot of people at your house and you get tired and you want everybody to fucking leave, just put on the N minor record. Everybody will be like, oh man.
Everybody will get sad or tired or something, and then they will leave immediately.
Exactly. I'll be like, oh, get me the fuck out of here.
Okay, let's talk about the production process, and we take a look at probably the last decade or so. The recurring names of Nosferatu's Lair and Stephen Berrigan are there. In your opinion, how different is it in comparison to working in different locations and with diverse producers?
Yeah, we can grow here any direction we want. We know what we're doing over here, and every record that we put out, it's very purposeful. Like the Illegals album before this, we knew that the production was ugly production, and I knew it would stick out like a fucking sore thumb, man. So we kept it. We were like, yeah, fuck it, man. You know, we're living in an age where everything has this glossy, plastic, perfect fucking sound. I said, fucking put out something that sounds imperfect. So, with choosing Mental Illness, same approach, very stripped down, raw, no triggers on the drums, just everything mic'd up very raw. And even vocally, if anything, perhaps I might use a little tiny bit of reverb here or there, but really the vocals are very raw, very stripped down. So, yeah, once again, we took a very honest approach, and working with Steve, you know, it's like once again, it's like part of the family, because we get to do each record, do each project. And you'll see once again as this year unfolds, all the different sounds that we do get over here. I guess would make for a very good conversation down the line. More about just my love of stripped down, real. Keep the fucking mistakes in. Keep the sour notes in, especially if the sentiment is there, type of recordings, man. You know, it's I would go over. I would take emotion, execution over. Actually, let me rephrase that. I would take execution and intent. Pardon me, execution and attitude. That's the word I'm looking for. Execution and attitude over any perfectly hit note that happens to fluctuate off key or something like that. I have them, so I keep them. I don't mind. It doesn't bug me. And matter of fact, I keep them on purpose because it keeps my feet grounded, man. It's like it takes away from that perfect sound of the modern time. To throw some imperfect, perfectly attituded music out there sometimes. Fuck it, man.
So it's part of the statement.
Big time statement. You can go your own way, you can do your own fucking thing, and you don't have to play by the rules.
Yeah, much of what is being produced nowadays is, as you say, too perfect that it takes away the human element and, the real face of things. So, honesty and freedom.
You just said everything that took me 10 minutes to say in 2 words. I love you. Thank you. Insert your quote right there. You took the words out of my brain.
Let's discuss the artwork. The cover of the album shows a series of images of what seems to be parts of experiments. How did the idea come about?
I think overall, when I was really examining the record as a full body of work, a lot of it was really devoted and I guess inspired by me examining what makes me tick, my childhood, my family bloodlines, my family history on my mother and father's side of the family, and certain relatives that the older, it's like the older I get, the more I can see and notice elements of myself that are very much like my father, and also very much like people on my mother's side of the family. So I find all that very interesting, but also, I look around the world, and I look at what's going on in the world, and also, honestly, it's an examination of a world right now, at this point in time, from my perspective, a world with a new God attached like a second brain in this world called the Internet age. So I look at this world now that has this new God called the Internet, a second head, a second brain called the Internet. Mm-hmm. And, yeah, it's a whole new world, man. I mean, you can disappear inside the rabbit hole and forget that there is a beautiful, real world outside. There's 2 different worlds. So I look at things from a mass psychosis as well. And it's interesting, when I came up with the title, I had to put the virtue part in there because I feel like I'm one of the people that struggles with depression, but I have this wonderful outlet called music, to where I can take all the negative energy that I have and I can apply it to something positive. And I'm very aware that there's a lot of people out there that are not afforded such a luxury of having an outlet, a place to put these negative feelings. Because I'll tell you, you live in computer land long enough, it's bound to happen. You're going to come away with a miasma of negative feelings. There's a great chance of it. And there's an air of unhealthiness to it that I just sense it. It's in my gut.
Yeah, it has definitely a dark and very potentially dangerous side.
I agreed. And it's like, it is a wonderful wonderful, great, incredible invention, but it is also, it's like, I'm not that guy. I'm just hypothetically saying that, I'm wondering if someone, somewhere, whoever is truly responsible, all the brain work behind the internet, it makes you wonder if somewhere, when they launched it, if someone somewhere was laughing and rubbing their hands together, or if they didn't quite know what they were doing to the public. How much the imperfect people, as we all are, every damn one of us are disasters waiting to happen. We're 1 minute away from disaster as human beings. None of us are perfect. To have the internet at your disposal, and for people that would have bad ideas, yes, the internet is a breeding ground for bad ideas, but it's also a breeding ground for good ideas. So I think the balance right now is we're all feeling and trying to balance it out. I think people are within themselves, but I think it'll be a very interesting study, social study around the world, the effects of the internet in about 20 years. It's going to be really interesting.
Yeah, probably the person you were referring to wasn't rubbing his own hands before, but along the line, maybe another person, or the same person was probably going like, hey, I've created something interesting here, something magnanimous. Maybe I have to begin rubbing my hands now and devise a plan after the fact.
It is interesting because it's like, okay, just face value, they say, as I'm a latecomer to computer savviness, first and foremost, there's the internet. There's there's information you can study. Like me, I study boxing. I study this. I study that. Things I'm interested in. American football, whatever. It's all there. But it's like the old story. It's like when a scientist creates something miraculous. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of Rod Serling stories, the great Rod Serling of Twilight Zone fame. A lot of his writings are about a scientist creating something great, but the scientist being very reluctant to give over this great invention because he knows that there are some people out there that want to use it for good, and there's some people out there that want to use it for bad. So it's the old story over and over.
Yeah, let's see what happens with the internet age and people.
Well, we're seeing the beginnings of it, and it's interesting.
Okay, last but not least, 5 titles here of releases that you have put out throughout your career. Say one word, or say one phrase, or say one complete sentence about that release. I mentioned the release, and then tell me what probably comes to your mind spontaneously, or the word that characterized them or that describes them. Alright?
Okay.
Good. So the first one is definitely Pantera Vulgar Display of Power.
I knew you were going to say that. Okay. Young and Hungry.
Necrophagia, Holocausto de la Morte.
Dark, low culture, fucking fun.
Superjoint Ritual. Use once and destroy.
Great good times at my old house. A big, blurry, alcoholic pill mess.
Down 3, Over the Under.
Reborn, refreshened, resurged, reemerged after Hurricane Katrina, and beating, defeating, and knocking out hard drugs in about the 7th round cold, and the referee did not have to count.
Finally, Phil Anselmo and the Illegals, choosing mental illness as a virtue.
Having the time of my fucking life, sliding into the great age of 50 in style, baby. You're laughing at me. That's okay, right? That's funny.
Let's laugh together.
It's all right. I'm 50. I'm the old man. Hey, anytime you laugh, it's got to be good. It's okay, man.
That's what the internet is taking away from us. You have to do something about it.
I know. We should all laugh together.
El Santuario del Rock.
This is Philip H. Anselmo, and you are listening to Santuario del Rock.